Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind Carter, participated in the annual Peanut Festival in their hometown of Plains, Georgia. It was a rare public outing for the couple, a week before Jimmy Carter would celebrate his 98th birthday, October 1st. Carter is expected to spend a quiet birthday at home with family, friends, and
Carter for a moment. Jimmy Carter has gone into hospice care right now. And so, you know, how is that going to play out? What's going to happen, you know, with him and his life? I guess, you know, none of us know for sure.
A steady, tedious, laborious, most often discouraging, incremental move toward agreement. The high spots, unfortunately, were those crisis moments when either Begin or Sadat announced that they were leaving, that they were giving up in hopelessness and animosity and disgust. And then I had to induce them to stay for a few more hours or maybe another day and give me a chance to find some common ground. On one occasion, when Begin was completely committed to leave, I carried some photographs of his grandchildren over. And I had found the name of all 8 grandchildren. I had written them on the photograph. Begin looked at them in a perfunctory way, and then he saw the name of his little children, whom he loved, and we started talking about our grandchildren and how the world might affect them adversely if we couldn't find peace. He changed his mind and decided to stay. That Sadat had packed his bags, directed the Egyptian delegation to leave and call for a helicopter to go back to Egypt. I was distressed with this, and I went and visited Sadat in his cottage, closed the door, and we had one of the most intense human encounters that I have ever experienced. I told Sadat that if he did leave, he would be violating his word of honor to me, that he would not walk out, that it would destroy the relationships between him and me, which we both considered to be very valuable, and it would also damage the relations between our 2 countries and brand Sadat as the obstacle to peace. So he thought about it a while and said, we'll stay. The legacy of Camp David is still to be determined by historical events. 6 months after the Camp David Accords were signed with a great sense of euphoria and thanksgiving, the progress had in effect been aborted. There was no follow-up. We couldn't even get a treaty between Israel and Egypt. So perhaps I took our nation's prestige and my own political future in my hands and decided to go to Cairo and to Jerusalem to make one last-minute appeal to Begin and Sadat to conclude a peace treaty. And we were finally successful. That peace treaty has stood the test of time. The other part of the Camp David Accords have not been so successful because of various reasons. We've not been adequately successful in inducing Israel to withdraw from the West Bank, nor in granting to the Palestinians full autonomy as required or their basic human rights. But no matter what happens in the future in the efforts to bring about peace, the basic premises of the Camp David Accords will have to be the foundation for progress to be expected in years to come.
John McCain, reaching for the worst possible insult for President Obama earlier this year, said this: "I have never seen anything like this in my life. I thought Jimmy Carter was bad, but he pales in comparison to this president, in my opinion." The serious question out of that is, what does it feel like, and what is your response to these moments of being used as an insult, your legacy being used as an insult?
That's a compliment to me coming from a warmonger. I was lucky enough when I was president to keep our country at peace and to provide peace for others. I was lucky enough to go through my 4 years. We never dropped a bomb. We never fired a missile. We never shot a bullet.
Supreme Court has now said, you know, unlimited money in politics. It seems a violation of principles of democracy. In the minute or so we have left, your thoughts on that?
It violates the essence of what made America a great country in its political system. Now it's just an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery being the essence of getting the nominations for president or the elected president. And the same thing applies to governors and U.S. senators and Congress members. So now we've just seen a complete subversion of our political system as a payoff to major contributors who want and expect and sometimes get favors for themselves after the election's over.
Yeah, it's a sad commentary on things.
It is.
It's going to take a political movement to change this, isn't it?
A horrible, disgraceful series of acts in our country that turned the public against it and eventually maybe even the Congress and the Supreme Court. That would be the main thing. But at the present time, the incumbents, Democrats and Republicans, look upon this unlimited money as a great benefit to themselves because somebody that's already in Congress has a lot more to sell to an avid contributor than somebody that's just a challenger. So it benefits both parties.
We won't talk to all the factions and among the Palestinians. So if you don't even talk to people, how do you work out the problem with them? We won't even talk to the people in Iran. I think we ought to be reaching out to people, not saying we're going to bomb you or punish you or have an economic embargo that hurts your people, but we're going to try to work out the problem by treating you as a human being, even though the people might be pariahs, they might be the cause of a war, but just because somebody causes war or violates human rights is no mean to ignore them because they're the ones that can correct the problem as well. And most of them want respect. They want to be treated as a decent human being, even though they don't deserve that reputation.
Given all of that, are you disappointed in the world and all the problems in the world? Why this one?
Well, the Carter Center really fills vacuums in the world. If somebody else is taking care of a problem adequately, the World Bank or the World Health Organization or the United States government or Harvard University, we don't get involved in it. And this was one of the 5 major neglected tropical diseases that the World Health Organization describes. And they are no longer known in even the halfway developed countries, but they afflict hundreds of millions of people in the poorest countries in the world, and some in Latin America and primarily in Africa. And this is one of the most difficult diseases to attack, to correct, because it's scattered from one village to another. The villages from just maybe 5 miles apart speak different languages, for instance, and they go through impenetrable jungles to get there. Well, we've done that. So it was a disease that not many public officials knew about, and it was in the most remote villages in the world, and it was a very difficult disease to know how to correct. We figured all of those answers out at the Carter Center. It's taken us about 30 years to do so, but we're right on the verge now of eradicating this disease.
How did you go, of all the things, you know, a peace deal in the Middle East, being president of the United States, Nobel Peace Prize, but wiping out a disease from the face of the earth, does that top maybe all of them?
Well, I think in a personal way it does because it affects so many people. This was a disease that was known in the Bible as a fiery serpent, and it's been there now for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 years. And to go into a village one year and teach them how to correct it and go back the next year, 0 guinea worm, just kind of brings tears to your eyes and tears of appreciation from the people that live there that never will have to contend with this horrible disease again.
So when you go to sleep at night, sometimes you have a smile on your face like, hey, no matter what else I did, that my life was worth living just on this alone?
Well, I'm going to have a bigger smile when the last case is gone, but you know, because we still see a danger of the disease coming back. So we have to monitor with thousands of volunteers who working for us and several hundred people on our payroll. Every village that has had guinea worm, we're still watching it to make sure that the guinea worm doesn't come back. So it's going to take several years to certify officially that the disease is gone forever.
So you're now, through the Carter Center, doing the incredibly hard work of wiping out diseases like this that others aren't fighting, and you know, the democracy work that you're doing, fair elections that you're monitoring, et cetera. Given how hard these tasks are and how much time you've spent on them, when you look back at when you were president, is there anything that you think, God, with that awesome power, I wish I had done this with it?
I wish I had known more about the value and efficiency and effectiveness of preventive medicine.
So much credit because a post-World War II American president not doing something in terms of foreign policy, not engaging in war or violence. It's unheard of, right? Turns out it's true. The U.S. was engaged in 2 missions when he was president, but they, by no stretch of the imagination, was violence involved. So it's true. He never fired a shot when he was in office. And that deserves a lot of credit, man. My, judgment of Jimmy Carter just got a lot better, and it was good to begin with, but now it's, I have nothing but admiration for him, because that is, honestly, that's one of those measures of success for a president that the common people like us have, like, oh, did you have this thing called peace when you were in office? But for whatever reason, the establishment class, most Republicans and Democrats, they don't look at it like that. They don't view that as a success. They have more imperialistic goals. They're like, well, we want to set up a new regime in wherever, Costa Rica, to make them kind to us and to help our corporations, yada, yada. So I give him so much credit after learning that, and I'm going to talk about this all the time now, because that really is morally superior in terms of your foreign policy. He got some peace in the Middle East. That's impressive. Of course, when he left, things happened afterwards, and it all went to shit. But when he was there, it was a fairly solid amount of peace. So, again, credit to Jimmy Carter. Now, remember, Jimmy Carter, guinea worm, it's this parasite that affects all these third world countries and affects Africa and its people who don't have access to clean water, so they drink whatever water's there, and they all get sick and die from this parasitic thing that lives in water. And all he did was go around and give a shit about people. And all it took was a filter. That's it. All it takes is a filter, and that problem's gone. Don't worry about it. It's gone. So he went around, he taught people how to use this filter, he taught people the science behind it, and now all these places we've basically eradicated guinea worm.
I wanted to share some thoughts on Jimmy Carter that I think are really, pretty important. First of all, Jimmy Carter was the first president in my lifetime, I believe. I'm trying to think if Harry Truman was president for a year during my lifetime. So I guess he was the second president in my lifetime to propose a national health care program. He wanted a national health care insurance program that paid all the medical expenses of all Americans above the first $2,500 a year. Kind of a single-payer program. To stop climate change. And, we've talked about that many times on this program. I've played the clips for you. I'm not going to play them at length right now. He was one of those rare Christians who actually believed and lived the words of Jesus, which was amazing. He was the victim of one of America's most notorious political crimes, Ronald Reagan cutting a deal with the Ayatollah to hang on to the hostages so that Jimmy Carter would lose the election of 1980. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, for his work in the Middle East, which was just extraordinary. I mean, the things that this man did. He was a nuclear scientist who, at the age of 28, stopped one of North America's worst nuclear meltdowns, or what could have been. He actually lowered himself into a reactor that was in the process or on the verge of melting down, and saved the capital of Canada, Ottawa, when he was 28 years old in the Navy. He was exposed to so much radiation that his urine was testing as radioactive for 6 months after that.